Mbabaram people. Mbabaram or Mbabaram, often referred to as the Barbaram people, are an Indigenous Australian people living in Queensland in the rainforests of the Atherton Tableland. Language. For a long time, mystery surrounded the Mbabaram language. The little that was known of it hinted that it might be a language isolate, since it appeared to differ notably from the surrounding languages. In particular, its vocabulary was monosyllabic, an anomaly among Australian Aboriginal languages. This puzzle contributed to the Berenian Hypothesis, which regarded the Mbabaram people as a reclusive rainforest remnant of an original Negrito population. The mystery was solved when, taking a hint from a suggestion from Kenneth Hale, Robert M.W. Dixon discovered that the ostensible differences could be accounted for by noting that Mbabaram words dropped the initial syllable present in contiguous languages and had developed from a regular Australian language. A phonetic principle outlined by Hale laid down that a second syllable of an Mbabaram word would become O if the original word began with a G. Thus, an original Gua West would change in Mbabaram to Wo, which was indeed their word for wests, for wests, wests, for wests, wests, for wests, west. The word for dog is also in Mbabaram a monosyllabic dog, not borrowed from English but, following this rule, simply a clipped version of Gudoga, the word for the animal in Yidden, which exists also in Durable, though they're shortened to Guda. With this insight, Mbabaram suddenly appeared no longer aberrant, but perfectly regular as an Australian language. Country. History of contact. The Berenian Hypothesis. In a publication of 1941, Norman Tyndale, together with the American anthropologist Joseph Birdsell, published a paper suggesting that there were 12 Negrito tribes living on the coastal and rainforest areas around Cairns. The idea had been developed by Birdsell during fieldwork in 1937-8. They were characterized by very short stature, curly hair, and yellowy-brown skin. 6 of them were durable speakers, such as the Jurubal, Gurumay, Gungai, and Juru within the Murray Upper/Tully area. Of the others, located further north beyond Cairns, 2 spoke varieties of Jabugay and 3 spoke dialects of Yidden. The remaining tribe were the Mbabaram, whom Tyndale took to be strong evidence for his hypothesis, because their language, insofar as it had been reported, diverged substantially from the surrounding tongues, and appeared to be wholly atypical compared to the standard Australian Aboriginal languages. They thought they could identify 8 characteristics shared by the Mbabaram with the other rainforest tribes. A patrilineal moiety system based on 4 sections, partial mummification of the deceased. The dead were not immediately disposed of, but were cremated only after the jawbones and skulls had been taken about with the nomadic tribes for a certain period of time. Having recourse to cannibalism as a food resource, deploying fighting shields that were emblazoned with decorations, manufacturing clothes out of bark, manufacturing baskets fashioned from wood harvested off fig trees, stitched together by string derived from the lawyer cane, adopting a lengthy leaching process to nuts with high alkaloid content and potentially toxic in order to render the fruit edible. A trihybrid thesis had been advanced in the late 19th century redolent of early ideas concerning supposed pure racial types, which posited that Australia had been populated by 3 successive waves of peoples. Supposedly these were the remnants of the hypothetical first wave of peoples to enter Australia, who were then thrust aside by further immigrations, successively undertaken by 2 distinct peoples with a superior hunting technology. The Tyndale-Birdsell argument had revived this model. Birdsell in particular argued that the putative Negrito types surviving in the tropical forests of northern Queensland were to be taken as Berenians. He linked them to the Andamanese, arguing they were a pygmy group that was the residue of the wave otherwise represented by the extinct Tasmanian Aboriginals. They had retreated into the rainforest as waves of the light-skinned Moravians affiliated to the Ainu came through. The third group were the Carpentarians, a dark people with a pronounced brow ridge, whom it was thought were affiliated to ancient Indian tribes. Birdsell's theory gained wide circulation when Norman Tyndale's storybook, The First Walkabout, 1954, co-authored by H. A. Lindsay, became a bestseller. There was no hard evidence for this, archaeological or anthropometric, and it was said to have fallen out of favor. Robert M. W. Dixon, who since the 1960s had been recording the languages of the North Queensland rainforest people, did not exclude the idea. Rumors concerning the Mbabaram as a physically small people who spoke a very different language from their neighbors held out some chance that the hypothesis held a grain of truth. Dixon eventually determined that Birdsell's theory could not be shown to correlate with the linguistic parameters. In 2002, it was revived when Keith Windschuttle and Tom Gittin accused modern scholars in Australia of having suppressed the evidence, partially to cater to the feelings of Aboriginal activists disturbed, according to them, by the idea that, given successive waves of invasion, their claims to native title might suffer from a hierarchy of claims, according to notable people. Two elders, Albert Bennett and Alec Chalk, were able to provide researchers with the basic lineaments of their mother's Mbabaram language in the early and late 1970s, supplying Robert Dixon, Robert Layton, and Jeff Archer with 300 words and the basics of grammar. Dixon's work with Bennett enabled him to puzzle out its structure and relation to other durable languages. Some words: dog meaning dog, but etymologically unrelated to the English word. Gunged kookaburra, you fish,